おっぱい大好きカエルです。今回は至高のおしゃぶりを求めてひたすらチュパっていきたいと思います。これは鳩の相性が悪い。
Boy, they didn't pump the brakes on this show, did they? So now that we're past the halfway point of the season, I thought I'd check in on what our dear Awayuki and our wacky harem of goofballs have been up to. So just like last time, I'll go over pretty much everything that's happened post episode 2, or at least the parts that stuck out to me. Also, for those who are curious about the anime I'm still watching this summer, here's a quick little update. Alongside VTuber, my other favorite show of the season is of course my dear friend Nokotan, which continues to tickle my funny bone. There's also Mayanaka Punch and Na Nari Hana Nare, which are certainly enjoyable, but are not without their share of problems. I might make a video talking about them at some point. Oh, and they're also pretty gay too. And finally, I did drop Shy after episode 3, unfortunately. It just got to the point where it felt a little too dull, and I couldn't bring myself to wade through the mediocrity. If it turns out that the show gets monumentally better later on, then I might give it a second chance. You're welcome to try and convince me if you want. Oh yeah, and I'm also watching that Rick and Morty anime, because I love a good train wreck. So with that out of the way, let's get to the gay VTubers, shall we? So episode 3 starts with Yuki paying a visit to the second sexiest girl in the show, Chami, who graciously gives Yuki a new microphone. Once again, we see Gap Moe taking effect here, as it turns out that the seductive hottie was a massive introvert. This became apparent as she went on a multitude of bathroom breaks, in order to relieve herself from the stress of social interaction. And me being the naughty boy that I am, initially thought she was relieving herself in a different way. I mean, with all the perversion the show has given us, would slacking to your fellow VTubers be so ludicrous? Anyway, the duo then did a live stream together, and aside from the tasty flirting, we got some sweet bonding moments between them, like Yuki helping Chami come out of her shell some more, and later Chami surprisingly being assertive with Yuki, after she brings out her love of doing normie things. And this scene, along with another in episode 7, is what cements Chami as one of the best girls with some of the best chemistry with Yuki. Basically, she's a good foil to Yuki's perversion, and this comes from being crazier, or just as crazy as her, which we learned only a handful of girls can achieve. Oh, we'll get to her soon enough. Then the second half of this episode features Yuki celebrating being monetized and revealing her new avatar skin, which was dubbed Shua-chan, aka Casual Yuki. The best part was I was drawn by Mashiro, who made sure it had extra leggy goodness. And at this point, I just want to make it official that Mashiro and Sei are two of my favorite characters. I mean, it kinda goes without saying why Sei's a favorite of mine, but in Mashiro's case, she started as a mid-tier character and ended up jumping straight into S-tier after a certain recent episode. Oh yes. So Yuki's stream basically has her interacting with her coworkers one by one, who congratulate her finally getting monetized. The last ones being the yet-to-be introduced members of Live On, Hirune Nekama and Asagiri Hareru, who I'm just gonna call Haru from now on. Or maybe Subaru's more accurate. She's a pretty fun character, as we'll find out, but I do hope we'll get to see more from Nekama. I feel like her personality hasn't quite solidified in the show yet. Now the first half of episode 4 essentially gives our eyes and ears some top-notch fan service, by having Yuki, Shion, and Hikari do some intense Wii Fit exercises. It also confirmed that Hikari was quite the short stack. God bless this anime. We later get a fun segment in the form of Haru-senpai streaming a Weiss Schwartz game, where she was obliterated by her opponent pulling a Rias Gremory card. Now for those who aren't in the know, Haru is played by the legendary voice actor Hikasa Yoko, who also voiced the Titty Devil herself, which made this a hilarious little inside joke. It's also important to note that the animation studio of VTuber TNK also made High School DD, which is why they were able to give us this blatant cameo. But the best part of the episode is definitely the girls collaborating on a music video together, which was absolutely fantastic. I also want to give major props to the anime for giving us a different ending song by one or more specific characters for every single episode. Now that's dedication. Alright, let's finally talk about the infamous 5th episode. So just when you thought there was enough crazy, the show introduces us to 3 quirky new VTubers, with a strong emphasis on quirky. We got the elf girl Sonakaze Hirai, whose shtick is being a hardcore zoologist, and naturally she's filled to the gills with interesting animal facts.
実はゴリラさんのペニスはおよそ3センチで、しかもホモサピエンスにはない陰茎骨がゴリラさんのペニスにはしっかりあるんですよ。
Next is Yamatani Karu, who takes fetishism to new and exciting heights. Despite her mature and stunning appearance, her whole persona is basically being an infant. Now I will say it takes a lot to make me uncomfortable. In fact, I can watch Harlem Shake poop while eating an entire bowl of chocolate ice cream. But I was genuinely at a loss for words during Karu's segment, because nothing could have prepared me for this.
心配ご無用です。ちゃんと服の下にはおむつを履いています。この通り
おしゃぶりを加えることもできます。当然です。赤ちゃんなので。
なんでこの子自信満々なの？
And finally, we got someone who manages to out crazy even that. Soma Alice, a name that has struck fear into our dear Yuki and many others across the globe.
絶対にかなわないものでも大丈夫なら口外水ですかな。わ？喉の一部とはいえ、ちんこはちんこなわけであります。それを私の体に取り込めば実質セックスになるのではないかと思うのでありますよ。ご清聴ありがとうであります。
To put it simply, this girl lives and breathes Kokoroni Awa Yuki, and I feel like I'd be doing a massive disservice describing anything that took place between her and the object of her affection. That shit needs to be seen to be believed. Let's just say she makes Anko look small and insignificant by comparison. And the last thing I want to talk about is the part where Yuki and Mashiro did their little fan art review collab. Had I known about this series earlier, I would have absolutely drawn some fan art of my own. I can only imagine the overwhelming euphoria from having these girls critique my naughty pictures. Incidentally, I do have some VTuber legend ideas in the works, so if you're interested in seeing them when they come out, just check out my socials. Anyway, moving on to episode 6, we start with one of the funniest segments the show has given us, in which Yuki, Nekoma, and Hikari participate in Irai's animal trivia game. And I'm proud to say that I got the lizard and flatworm facts correct. Thanks, David. But the real fun began when Yuki did a collab with the mama of Livon, Shion, and we get to see firsthand how powerful her motherly instincts really are. I think I was more frightened than turned on during this segment, but it was a feeling I wholeheartedly embraced.
シオン先輩。
赤ちゃんがなんで自分で立ち上がろうとするのかな。
いや、だってそれ。
それにそんなに生態が器用な赤ちゃんはいないでしょ。
Yes, mommy. We then end the episode with Shion musing over Karu not having done any collabs with anyone yet. And at this point, I just want to mention that when we were first introduced to Karu in the last episode, my immediate thought was that she and Shion was gonna debut as the mother-daughter dynamic duo. I mean, it's the perfect match. But so far, they have yet to even meet. They're doing a damn good job blueballing us here, I can tell you that. Next is episode 7, where we get to see our designated woman child in all her glory. After collapsing from the weight of trying to be a functioning member of society, Karu was helped by a concerned Yuki when she paid a visit to the Livon office. They then decided to host an impromptu collab, where Karu declared Yuki to be her Ultra Mama. Now for those at home who are keeping track, so far we have Yuki who's fantasized becoming Hikari's mama, Mashiro being Yuki's theoretical mama because she designed her avatar, Shion who is of course the mama of all mamas, and now we got Karu who has finally found her soul mama in Yuki. Would the class like to theorize on what the author is trying to say here? We then get a tender moment where Yuki reassures Karu and gives her the confidence she needed to become a great VTuber. And I might be wrong here, but I think this is the first time the show has given us anything emotional between the characters. But saying that, this, along with episode 8 of course, absolutely shows that character drama can and does work in a show about wacky lesbian VTubers. Put that on the back of the box, Crunchyroll. So to wrap up the episode, we got a more chill segment with Yuki and Chami going on an amusement park date. But as you'd expect, the normie levels in this environment were too overwhelming for our dear Chami to handle. I too rely on a scouter to analyze an extrovert, and God help you if it's over 9,000. Alright, that was a little too easy. But I think the biggest takeaway from this portion of the episode is that Chami has shown much more potential in becoming a fantastic suitor for Yuki. I mean, for one, she expressed interest towards our drunken princess. And two, they both are at their most relaxed and cheerful when they're in each other's company. Now, goofing around and making dirty jokes is fine and all, but at the end of the day, what matters most is how to establish a serious relationship. The things that make them good girlfriend material. And speaking of that, I think it's about time we finally talk about the second star of the show. To say that this was one of the best episodes is an understatement, because it not only makes great strides in character development, but it also shows how strong the characters' bonds are when it really matters. So let's do this. Episode 8 begins with a flashback of Mashiro proclaiming her love for Yuki as a quote-unquote friend. Remember this as it'll be important later on. Then the middle part of the episode sees the two of them doing another collab. But before that, they show just how close their friendship is by having them pretty much act like domestic partners. Remember what I said about establishing a serious relationship? Next, we see them having fun going over new outfits for Yuki during their stream. It's also a well-known fact that if you gaze into the abyss of a cleavage, it will not only gaze back into you, but also give you a swift kick in the nuts. But the best portion of the episode begins with Mashiro insisting to a stunned Yuki that they bathe together, and plenty of naughtiness ensues. Now, one thing I forgot to clarify is that despite her lascivious nature, Yuki is surprisingly meek when faced with advances from others. Obviously, the best examples come from her interactions with Alice, but in those cases, it could just be her defending her chastity. I would compare Yuki to basically Katsuragi from Senran Kagura, or perhaps even a certain pirate VTuber. They're the horny types, until they realize that the horniness can go both ways. Anyway, the romance nearly boils over when the pair share a bed together. And honestly, just like Alice's mind-bending sermons, I would not be able to do justice talking about this scene. It was just that amazing. Let's just say that the romantic tension was as good as the bed scene from Magical Revolution. Obviously without the implied sex. The two then reaffirmed their quote-unquote best friendship in their dreams, and once again proclaimed their love for one another. Now I challenge anyone to watch this episode and tell me with a straight face that they genuinely only thought of each other as just friends. With Mashiro, it's painfully obvious that what was once admiration of her genmate blossomed into full-blown lovesickness after she got to know the most delicate and caring sides to her. And again, without going into details, the relationship really reminds me just why I love Yuri so much. Not just the flirting and fan service, but the deep interpersonal moments that move the hearts of the characters. Honestly, this episode is gonna be hard to top, and while I don't expect Yuki or any of the other characters to settle down anytime soon, this absolutely planted the seeds for some serious relationships to come. Well, there we have it. If you have any thoughts or concerns with the show, please let them be heard in the comments. For me, the recent episodes have certifiably made this anime of the season. The only real gripes I have are some of the jokes and references flying over my head. But what can I say? I'm steadily becoming a boomer with no knowledge on the hip young VTubing generation. What? I do what with my tubes? So yeah, fun show with plenty of wild and sometimes tender Yuri moments. Maybe once it finishes, I can do a proper review. Let me know if you'd be interested in that. In which case, comment and subscribe. That would also help me a lot too. Alright, see you around.